Hi, we are ready.
I didn't do anything.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the workshop of the Board of County Commissioners for June 19th. Would you all please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first thing on our agenda today is a discussion as it's related to broadband and a capital funds project, and we have Mr. McClain, our IT director, here with us, and along with you, if you would pull a mic forward, everybody else can introduce themselves for the public.
I'm Robert Dobry. I'm the grant writer for Montezuma County.
Jim McClain, Montezuma County IT Director.
Rick Smith, General Services, City of Cortez.
Shaq Powers, Project Manager, Region 9 Economic Development District.
We're with NeoConnect.
Jason Armstrong, Community and Economic Development for the town of Mancos.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you, gentlemen, all for being here. And with that,
I'm going to pass it to Shaq.
whoever wants to start first, Shaq, I guess you're on the hot seat.
Okay, sounds good, Commissioners. Thank you for having us here today. What we're bringing before you today is there's some funding coming down from the Colorado Broadband Office called Capital Projects Funding. The goal of the program is to get internet services to homes that are currently unserved. And the guidelines are defining unserved as anybody that has connections of less than 25 down by 3 up is considered unserved for this program. And Montezuma County is considered a Tier 1 county, which requires a 25% match. And we were able to work with the Colorado State University through their technical assistance program to hire consultants, NeoConnect, to work with Montezuma and Dolores counties to help them put together programs. So together with Jim McClain and the municipal staffs, NeoConnect has mapped out the areas that need to be built out and put together an invitation to negotiate on behalf of the county. And what the invitation to negotiate says is that if private internet service providers want to step up to the plate to build out these areas, and the Montezuma County would be willing to pursue the grant on their behalf, and that the cash match would need to come from the internet service provider. Now, what keeps internet service providers generally from building in areas that you see on the map, like Goodman Point, Weber Canyon, things of that nature, is what's called the take rate. They have to put so much fiber in, and they don't get enough customers off of what they put in to recover their costs. What this does for a private internet service provider is helps them to get a return on investment. It basically reduces the cost to build by 25%, and reduces it by 75% and allows them to build out the network by 25% of the cost. But they need to partner with a county to be able to do that, to be able to access the funds that are available. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chris and NeoConnect, who can kind of discuss the details of what's in the invitation to negotiate.
So you probably haven't heard of an invitation to negotiate. It's similar to an RFP or an RFEI in that it's more open in nature. So it allows for a lot more creativity on behalf of the ISPs to really look at those areas that were up on the screen there momentarily and stitch together some kind of business case. So really all the ITN that is sitting before you is that open negotiation, nothing committal on behalf of the county or the service provider, at least in this initial phase. And what we're looking for is approval for the draft language to get this published as soon as possible. The opening date is actually tomorrow for when these grants can go in. and we have to be completely done with the process, finding the ISPs have to have done the engineering, we have to have had the negotiations, all that's got to be in by August 20th. So it's a bit of a rush at this point.
So I have a quick question for you then, Chris. So as far as our ISPs in our local area, is there a lot of interest? Because, I mean, are they all interested? This is an open network, right? So all of the ISPs could,
We're not proposing an open access network. Open access networks are really good in areas of high density where you can generate enough competition to actually have those individual service providers get their revenue.
so this would be one ISP looking at this grant to provide those services to those individuals that are
Multiple
built out.
ISPs, ideally, multiple ISPs are going to look at this, and they're going to come back with, in a perfect world, one may say they want to serve over by Mancos, the other one may say they want to serve up something north of Dolores, the other one might want to look at something over on McElmo Canyon.
So have we had that conversation with our ISPs?
We've had
This is the process
This
to
is-
allow the
So this is-
ISPs to
Yeah,
have.
we
This
have
is
to
the
do
first-
this
okay.
first.
All right.
We have
Go ahead.
solicited interest from ISPs, so there's a bunch of ISPs we're talking to. We can't really continue that negotiation in earnest until published.
Okay. Gotcha. All right.
I would just add, if you look at the map that we had up there, the northwest portion of the county, we went in, connected and took out the items that are already in a grant process with the federal government because they wouldn't dual it. So Farmers Telephone area, out at Lewis, those are reconnect grant areas. So that's why the northwest quadrant, I'd call it, of that map, doesn't show up as a zone because they're going to be served already. So just a clarification.
Okay. Whoever's next. Sorry, I just had to jump in and ask a few questions.
The maps itself were drawn based upon the most need. So we tried to look at the areas to try to figure out, okay, so backing up with the funding, it's basically it's 20 million at a time. And so in a perfect world, we'd be going after $160 million, but that's not happening. So we had to break this into smaller chunks. And if I understood it was 20 million was the most we could go after at one shot. So if you look at the cost sheet, which you can bring that up if you want, but there's an Excel sheet and it kind of shows you the cost. There's no aerial in this, so we have not gone, this is taking in an assumption that we'd have to go underground with everything. But since we've already had the conversation with Empire Electric about through the NTI thing in the middle mile, we're hoping that we'll be able to get them to come to the table and have another discussion about just continuing on with that same process. So this cost of that could come down some if we can do some aerial, but not knowing that answer yet, they had to design it based on all underground.
And, go ahead.
I say it's definitely a worst-case scenario that we have painted up on the board here. Once the ISPs get a hold of the data, we're going to provide them the underlying assumptions, locations of the households, these study areas, and they're going to take a pen to it and optimize it.
I would say that with Empire Electric, they're not going to exercise their right to just claim the easement through private property, whereas buried with the county, you already own the easement on the sides of all the county roads. So that is one other assumption, because if an ISP decides they want to go through and to build aerially, then it would be incumbent upon that ISP to perfect the easements if they haven't been done on sections of private property, as well as they would be responsible for any make-ready costs on the poles.
Okay. So then, as a tier one, and I wrote this down, I want to make sure I have it correct, it's a 25% match, and the 25% match would be provided by the ISPs.
Correct. The
So
county
there's-
could also choose to provide part of that match as in-kind, so if you wanted to give a value to your right-of-way or something like that, but we have it set up so that the county would not have any cash outlay.
Okay. Questions?
Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, but the grant process is controlled by the Colorado Broadband Office, and that's where this would be going into. The state of Colorado's getting an allotment from the federal, and that's where these funds would be coming from.
So let me ask you, and you guys may not be able to answer this question. So as far as affordability to the end user, because that's a big conversation is the affordability to the end user. If it's $150 a month, we're not going to hook up anybody, or whatever it is, even probably $100 a month, we're not going to hook up anybody, specifically in these far outer reaching rural areas. So what can you tell me about
So,
that?
Commissioner, if you'll pull back up the Word document for the invitation to negotiate, that's one of the questions that has to be responded to in the invitation to negotiate is what kind of upload and download speeds the ISP would provide at what prices and what their packaging tier structure would look like, and that will give the commissioners the opportunity to evaluate what would be the best deal.
The state is also scoring these based on affordability. So as part of the negotiation process, we'll bring forward the most fairly priced offerings. Also as to affordability, you've got the Affordable Connectivity Plan as part of the IIGA funds that went out post-COVID, and that's going to offer a $30 subsidy on any ISP service that is available to take that. So we're definitely going to elect an ISP that does participate in ACP. So that would result immediately in a $30 reduction in cost for anybody that can afford it, and that would be anybody with at 200% of the poverty level, anybody that's taken a Pell Grant. There's an entire program for it, but that's baked into the program.
And the subsidy on that is managed by the ISP, it's not managed by the county, so that's not any administrative burden on the county for that.
Okay. Anybody else?
No?
You will see certain things if you've read over the invitation to negotiate on the scoring matrix. That's built largely on how the state is going to score applications that the county and the internet service providers would put in together. You'll see in there certain things that Montezuma County doesn't normally put in their scoring criteria, such as, you know, is this a minority-owned business, anything like that. NeoConnect did not write that in to speak on behalf of the county, but to align with the matrix that the state is going to use to score applications.
So this is going to include middle mile and last mile,
Well, that's no.
correct? Or is this just
mostly
last mile?
This is mostly last mile.
But it has, we'll be able to build some middle mile to get to last mile. You just can't, it can't be, middle mile's not the priority on this because CPF won't do middle mile. But there is gonna be some of these areas where we're gonna have to build middle mile to get the last mile because
Yeah,
we're going
because-
down the road.
Yeah,
So-
there's no,
And in the overall
Connectivity.
funding strategy, the capital projects fund is being released by the state first, and then sometime later next year, after the state has submitted a 5-year plan to the federal government, to the NTIA, for a release of BEAD funds, then BEAD's priority will be to go back in and fill the what would be considered underserved. This is to start with the unserved and then go back to the underserved, and so to connect to those middle mile pieces. So it's kind of building from the end user backwards, the way the funding pieces are coming together. But you're right, there's nothing connecting Weber Canyon or McElmo Point or McElmo Canyon or Goodman Point or any of that at this point. So you're correct, those pieces have to come in still. And Chris can talk more about how an ISP would do that in the meantime.
IRUs probably.
IRUs, access to existing infrastructure, fast-tracked via Tri-State has a number of points of interconnect spread throughout the county. Anywhere that CenturyLink is deployed, faster DSL, faster terrestrial internet over copper, they might have the facilities there to where a service provider could come in and drop a 4x6x6 cabinet adjacent to that, and then lease off CenturyLink in the interim.
This doesn't run up against the city leasing out their fiber, does it, in any way?
No, the city in this grant is considered served, so it
Okay.
can be all everywhere around. It supplements, I mean, it's all good that gets more people connected, of course. The map that you saw up there and the fact that the middle mile is not in this grant, and Jim alluded to, some will be by default built. We're gonna have to look at some of the priority routes for the bigger picture, because we're not sure about this middle mile grant that's already been submitted. And most likely, we'll have to take that in consideration on the CPF.
Is this hinged on that middle mile grant? I mean, if that middle mile doesn't come through, it's not gonna fall?
No, this doesn't depend on that. Now, if we don't end up getting a piece of that NTIA action, we'll have to find other workarounds, and eventually we'll still build that middle mile route, but this is not dependent upon it.
Correct.
That's one of the elements I think we would bake in any final negotiation with an ISP, is ensuring that they have adequate capacity to fund extensions for other parties in the future. So we'll get the middle mile built one way or another, even if it's piecemeal.
So what's our biggest unserved and underserved? I mean, because this map is pretty congested, but what is it really? Is it the Mancus area, or is it?
No, it's more in pockets, that's why it's broke down the way it is, and you'll see it 1A, 1B, 2A,
Yep.
2B. Those are broke down based upon so your underserved, complete, and unserved are gonna be in areas where there's less density, that's given, right? Because getting into the pockets where the density's at, I mean, that's almost a no-brainer for most ISPs. But the maps were built around what we thought would be the most unserved or underserved areas, and we tried to go that way out with it, so we could figure out who had the least chance. These are areas that they can't even get wireless.
Yeah, so these areas that are being, it's not just that we thought they might be best served. This is what the speed tests and surveys and the FCC data actually reveal as being unserved and underserved. And the purple areas are the unserved. And so you can see the greatest unserved, no surprise, would be Weber Canyon, Goodman Point, McElmo Canyon, Boggy Draw. I mean, places where there just isn't any density. And it's also difficult to build in that terrain.
So when we say unserved, does that mean with just fiber, or does that mean with anything? Because Starlinks is out there everywhere.
Unserved generally means they don't even have connectivity. That's unserved.
By
Underserved,
anybody or anything.
anybody, if they don't have access to any kind of internet, that could be it DSL, wireless, at this point doesn't matter. And unserved just strictly means they do not have connectivity. Underserved is exactly what he alluded to at the beginning, which is, this is the requirements by the FCC of 25.3, and I think it's still 25.3?
Well, 25.3 is the bottom. Below 25.3 is unserved. 25.3 to 100 by 20 is underserved.
But with some of those providers, don't they choose to be underserved? I mean, if you sign up for 5 meg, 5 up and down.
The data is based upon filings that FCCs make, or that ISPs make to the FCC for availability of service. So
Okay.
not necessarily what people are taking, but what's being offered to them.
Okay.
Best case scenario claimed by the incumbent ISPs.
That's the reason we pushed out our own speed test, and we had about 300 people take it and the survey, and it was quite alarming to see the differences. They would take a speed test based upon what the ISP was claiming, and they'd be so drastically different that it weren't even in the same ballpark.
Okay,
And that was ideally rectified in the previous releases of what they're calling the fabric, which is the data set. So the FCC releases the availability data as claimed by the ISPs, and then counties, ISPs, goodwill folks have a chance to contest that and argue a given census block or an address and fix it. So we're on Rev 3 of the fabric at this point. Hopefully, a lot of those errors have been chased out. I'm sure they're still present, but this version of the map's definitely better than previous versions.
okay. So basically, right now, as a tier one, the 25% match is all within the ISPs. And for us moving forward, if we like this, approve this, there's really nothing as far as a cost associated to the counties with at all, the way I see it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I do just want to say that the whole cash match has to be provided by the ISP. The county can put up in kind the way we've written this, such as access to the right-of-way. Depending on how the contract is tracked after award, there will be some administrative time associated with it.
That would be him.
Okay.
That would be you.
There would be some of my time in writing the grant, but later around the administration would flow through Jim.
So, a minimal cost, then I should say.
Minimal.
Minimal. Okay. I think that answered all my questions. Gentlemen?
Good.
I think one question the commission could anticipate from the public is, are you going to be investing in an infrastructure that's just going to be needed to be updated in 5, 10, 15 years and it'll be obsolete? We don't believe that to be the case with fiber because, as you know, fiber is glass and it's not transmitting electrical current, it's transmitting light. Through glass. Light travels at 240,000 miles per second, and we don't see anything faster coming along for a very, very, very long time.
Okay.
I don't think they have processors on either end that can process that fast, do they?
They do, but they're really expensive.
And any equipment that ISPs actually put in as part of this will be future-proof, at least to the next level that we're seeing. So currently, the gold standard and what's getting deployed in the city is generally 1 gig up and 1 gig down. All this infrastructure is going to be capable of 10 gig, 20
40
gig,
gig,
continue
100
from there.
gig.
Commissioner?
I'm just going back to what Jim asked earlier as far as the connectivity. So if it's on the county road and you're wanting to put it into your house, what kind of expense are you talking about for people?
Let me attempt to answer that question. The ISPs try to build their business model on no greater than, say, a fiber drop of $2,500, because much above that, they can't get their ROI. So in comes the grant opportunity. So if you consider a county road, say it's a mile long, and you have 4 homes along that county road, and it takes about $50,000 a year or to construct aerial fiber for a mile, you can see that that drop cost gets up about $12,000. So where the grant comes in, 75% of that would be paid by this grant, and it starts to bring that cost to bring that fiber to your home in the county down to something that somebody can get an ROI and build a business case on. I know it gets a little confusing, but it's real important that we get these routes as close to the homes as we can, and of course it would be up to the ISP and the contract between the ISP and the customer, the final cost, but we're trying to get that cost down to where people can make a living by selling services to people in the low density areas.
So I think I think what we're searching for, I don't think you're gonna be able to answer. Because if I'm hearing you right, you're searching for the same answer. So say I've got 600 feet is what it takes to get from the county road or where the main fiber is. What is that going to cost me? Because if I can't afford to get that 600 feet, and if the ISP is only going to be able to put in, only get $2,500 per drop, I'm one drop, and I'm 600 feet away, or he may be 60 feet away.
Commissioner, I think some of that's going to be revealed in the response from the ISP as to what their costs are going to be.
Yeah, having been on the ISP side of this, estimating those drop costs is definitely part of the process. So any respondent that's done their homework will have calculated in, you know, the average length of a drop in a given area and applied their take rate to that percentage and budgeted accordingly.
I think he's looking more, if I understood you right, you're looking more to know if the customer themselves, the end user, is the one that's gonna have to pay for this drop. Is that how I understood this?
Correct. What is it gonna cost, if I'm getting Commissioner Copenhaver's question right, because I was kind of alluding to that. I live 600 feet away from the network.
Right.
From the closest point. So I understand that the ISP is gonna charge me a monthly fee of X. I get that. But the Y component of what does it cost me to get from A to B to get the connectivity, that's an initial cost. It's a one-time cost, I get it. But that could still be an unserved area if our people can't afford to get from point A to B. I guess is what my question is. I get trying to fill the gaps and I get trying to get it everywhere that we possibly can, but unless it's aerial at those points, which that will probably be part of the consideration, it still may not be connected.
Yeah,
Because
so-
I can't afford, I mean, say it cost me $2,000 or what to get the 600 feet. And
The
there
ISPs
are a lot of places that are 600 plus on our county roads. I mean, I'm over 600 feet away, just my driveway to a subdivision road. I mean,
Yeah, I'm one of those.
So-
I live out by Summit, so I've got 1,400 feet between the edge of the road and my house. So the ISP, as part of this grant, would be responsible for building up across, beyond, you know, along the property line. And they should place infrastructure in the most opportune place to do that extension. These lateral extensions from the backbone to the house are significantly less expensive than you would be doing for the middle mile or last mile pieces. So the ISPs should be taking that into account. If there's any additional cost, that's something we'll definitely tease out in the evaluation process. So we would take into account affordability for that last drop in the interview discussion and then present you guys with those options. But I would expect the ISPs to bake that in completely and not pass that cost on.
And ultimately, if all the ISPs come back and say connectivity is still gonna be ridiculous after the negotiation, you don't have to move forward and apply for the grant.
This CPF is really only round one. This is kind of a teaser, in my opinion, to what's coming later, which is that BEAD allocation of 900-ish million. That's when we're gonna get a lot more done. This will bring those ISPs into our realm of discussion. They'll be aware that there's BEAD coming. I expect that will probably flavor their approach. You know, a better application now has a higher degree of getting additional funding through additional efforts like this later through BEAD.
is that kind of where you were headed?
Yeah, oh,
I
yeah,
think-
yeah, that's what I was, I mean, you know, how much that cost.
Yeah.
It's like what you're saying. Hell, I'm further than 600 feet from the road, so.
That's where the alternate construction methods really come in handy. So you're
Well,
not
and-
bringing a boring machine out or a giant trencher. You can really bring a small walk-behind tool with one guy operating it to get those drops in, even if they are 600-700 feet.
Okay.
I know I'm gonna be standing by the road with my glass of lemonade in hand and with open trench and poly in the trench. I'd be ready.
No, and I appreciate it. I mean, I appreciate the conversation because we all know that we're we're either unserved or underserved in a lot of areas, but we are a long way off of the roadways in
Yeah.
pretty much all of our
But just to give you, Empire's saturation is just a little under 8 people, 8 meters per mile. That's what we serve. Take that back, a little under 9 meters per mile.
But nevertheless, moving forward, the ISPs, how many ISPs really do we have in this area that could be utilized?
We don't really know yet.
I think, so this actually casts a relatively wide net. So beyond posting it locally, newspapers picking it up, it should end up on BidNet. So that's going to be nationwide. In other municipalities we're doing this with, other counties, we're seeing interest from players that haven't really shown up before. So whether their interest is piqued by CPF or by the renewed interest by the counties and municipalities of doing some kind of partnership, I would say you're going to definitely have more ISPs responding than you have ISPs locally present.
Okay.
That being said, I would remind the commissioners that your procurement policy does allow for you to favor 5% against an out-of-state bid.
Okay, so basically, other than just a minimal amount of staff time, really, that's really the only commitment that we would be making.
At this point, you wouldn't be making any commitment. You'd be waiting to see what kind of, what the negotiations reveal. And
Correct.
then if you and 2, 3, 4 ISPs decide to put forth applications, then at that point, the only commitment you would have is whatever administrative costs are involved.
Okay,
Yeah, right now it's just that piece of it, the ITN that we have to, the ITN that we need to get approved to be able to put out, to publish it, so we can start getting responses.
and you said August 20th was the deadline? So it is,
That's to be submitted. Correct.
right, yeah, to be submitted,
So we need to get it out.
that is very short.
Thankfully, the ISPs are ready. When I join these state calls about these programs, there's dozens of ISPs on there. So they're ready. They've got this data loaded for the most part. They've taken a look at a lot of areas. They'll be ready to move.
Okay,
And just so some of the people here know, the commission can't give a thumbs up or down today. They've got to do that at their regular meeting tomorrow.
strictly just discussion today. Any other questions?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, thank you for your time, appreciate it, and we will move forward tomorrow. Thanks, have a great day. All right, next we have a county per diem policy, Mr. Anderson.
So we're, again, trying to update some of our pay as far as it relates to per diem. Last week, we did the mileage rate. So this week, we're trying to update our per diem rates. A lot of times you go to Aspen or Avon, Vail, and our per diem rates are extremely low, and so you can't afford to eat, or we're not giving them enough money to eat on. So there's a website that we have, and once this is approved, I'll send that out as well. You just click on where you're going, and it provides the per diem rate for you. And this will help us so that we're not changing it every year. We'll just follow the GSA per diem rate, and every year, if it goes up, it goes up. If it goes down, it goes down.
And I think this was, again, Commissioner, it was, your name was on the last one also, so it was not updated since 2012, 2011.
2011.
So it's way overdue.
Yeah.
So I don't have any problems with it. It's pretty simple.
Cut and dried.
Okay. Good?
You betcha.
Okay. Next, we have a discussion as it's related to the COVID-19 detention and mitigation and confinement facilities grant, and we have Lieutenant Pierce here. And along, actually, we have two of them, and we have Miss Martin also. We are great. How are you guys? So who's, I guess, Vicky, you're going first?
Well, yeah, Wanda wrote the grant for us. I kind of helped her with the information that we needed to get, you know, in order to maybe get some money for gloves, thermometers, and also, what else did we get? We got partitions for the visitation area, so that we could keep some of the germs away. Of course, gloves are always a must in the detention facility. You have 3-4 people on a shift, and you glove up all the time. We're still doing our COVID testing when they come in, try to keep that out. And of course, we'll keep the temperature thermometers. We're going to use those to keep that. We'll keep going with that all the time. The nurses and everybody say that, you know, COVID's starting to become a kind of a thing of the past, but I would like to continue with some of the policies that we have to try to keep some of anything out of there that we can, you know, any kind of disease or sickness out of the housing area. And this grant, I believe, will help us at least a little bit, try to get 80 cases of gloves, 10 thermometers. It's a little bit of something to help, you know, kind of supplement the cost.
So reading this, it's a reimbursement grant. So in other words, you purchase the equipment, whatever it is, and then you have to, I mean, it's not on this is just a submittal form, but then you get reimbursed for what your actual costs were for
Yes.
gloves, thermometers, whatever. Okay. What, okay. So this just is ongoing, just for a 1-year process? That's all this is?
Yes.
Just a one-time.
This is the first time we've put in for this grant. We found out it was available and thought that we'd see if we could get some costs that we incur regularly reimbursed.
Yeah. Which, obviously, gloves, you're
Yeah.
never gonna stop using gloves.
No.
I hope not.
No,
I mean, that's gonna be a reoccurring cost
yes.
Of course.
forever.
Yeah.
And not just
one
for
of your big
COVID, but
costs.
it's bloodborne pathogens, it's
Anytime
every
you
other
fingerprint
pathogen that you
somebody-
can possibly imagine.
Especially to
Okay.
protect our personnel out there.
Yes.
Yeah. So I guess my next question is 10.8 the amount? That's total that you can get, or is that just what you added up that you think the cost would be? Because,
I think that would be a reasonable amount that we could get. It will give us quite a large amount of gloves, which should last us a little bit. We kind of thought that is not like trying to go over, since we're such a small county, or jail, I should say. It would be a reasonable amount that we could possibly get.
The maximum amount on these grants is $125,000 each. And they were looking at a small number of grants if everybody put in for the maximum amount. And we didn't have the need to put in for that much, so we decided to.
so you just kind of
To
anticipated
justify.
what you would use in the
Yes.
period of the year?
Yeah, this is justifiable. Reasonable.
Okay, sounds good. And then the Internet Crimes Against Children grant.
This
And
is
that-
an ongoing grant that we've gotten in the past. It covers trainings, it covers computers, it covers evidence storage, software, anything that links to internet crimes against children. In the past, last year, we sent Yvonne Huff to a training and got her a dedicated computer so that she could work on that with that. This year, when I talked to Detective Haynes, he would like to have a couple of different kinds of software that will fill in the gaps with what we've already got. One breaks into inexpensive Android phones that our Celebrite does not do. And the other one actually will clone a hard drive on a computer, and you can move it so that you can, and it sometimes even breaks through the password protection so that you can get into it a lot faster and easier. So those are the two softwares that we'd like to get. And then we've asked for some hard drives for storage of this information because you need to have secure storage and it needs to go into evidence. So,
And the next question is 12,000, is that
that
truly,
enough?
will that cover everything? I mean,
yes, it will cover, well, we put in for 12,000. I'm not sure, last year we got a little over $6,000. And I've asked them if that is a reasonable amount. They didn't get back with me, so I went in ahead and put the grant. But I also put in the narrative that if they don't have enough funding on the one, let me see which one it is, the software, the Arsenal Recon software, we put in for 5 years. And if they don't have the funding, we could do with just a year, if they would fund a year, just so that we could have it. So we're hopeful that they'll fund the whole thing, but if
Just
not.
given the increase in abuse that we see through social services should justify this.
It should, and I'm very hopeful that they'll fund the entire amount. Because we see every year crimes, not just internet crimes, but crimes
Right.
against children are rising exponentially.
so is this software, if by chance we get this grant, because
Mhm.
all of our software guys are telling us now, we used to plan for 5 years. Now, nothing is 5 years, 3 years probably max. Is that just gonna be a reoccurring cost?
After the 5 years, it would be a reoccurring cost, yes, if we kept the software. But this would cover 5 years
5-year
of software.
piece? Okay.
Yes. And
Because
then,
something that we're very aware of up here are reoccurring costs that,
yes.
I mean, if you get a grant, it's great. Well, you have the grant, but pretty quick countywide, if we got X amount of dollars to cover grants for 2 or 3 years, and then guess what? In 3 years, we're picking up all of those costs. It creates some challenges.
It does,
So-
and with this, if it's software that we see that really works and that there's a need for, then we would have to budget it into our budget to continue it after that, so that it would perpetuate itself. But that's definitely something we are aware of.
Okay, question?
No,
I don't have any problem with it.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
thanks, guys, appreciate it.
The Italian in her.
That's okay. The whole purpose for the workshops is because we actually have time to communicate.
Yeah.
Create a dialogue, so that we're not doing it in, where we're making decisions, because now we get to sleep on it and think about it, and tomorrow we'll make the decision. Yep.
And the sheriff can take care of tomorrow's part, we don't need to be here, or
He won't be here, so, I think we've had the dialogue today. It's
Yeah,
It's probably okay.
not gonna, it's,
we're good.
the conversation's today. We know what's coming down the pipe tomorrow, so. Yep. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Okay, and with that, that is all the bullet points I have on my agenda. Gentlemen, we are adjourned. Thank you.